A lot of tech favorite videos typically cover the same ground, whether it be monitors and headphones, keyboards, all of those types of products where you could probably find 5 videos comparing all the different specs. I wanted to share the products I touch every single day or at least multiple times a week. These are intentional, well-designed products that I would recommend to a friend or family member. So without further ado, these are the 10 tech purchases I'd make again in 2026. This is going to be in no particular order, and none of these products have been sponsored. Number one is my Kindle. I love that this product does one thing very well, and that is just to read. It's much better on your eyes than staring at your phone or an iPad. I typically spend like 45 minutes to an hour reading every single night, and my partner is often asleep before me. And so being able to continue to read without having a device that lights up the entire room is a plus. My only caveat here is if you were to buy it new, I'd recommend getting the newer models that let you adjust the temperature of the display and not just the brightness. I was able to test this in store and I could definitely notice a difference, especially at night when that's the only light on. I feel like this would be better long term, but honestly, any Kindle is probably going to be fine if you're just looking to start reading. Number two is my Philips sunrise lamp. About a year ago, my family and I went to the beach and we were able to stay in an Airbnb. The room that I was specifically in had east-facing windows, and something about waking up to really natural golden warm light in the morning, especially in the summer, made such a difference. Now, in our bedroom here, we have blackout curtains because there's tons of street lights and other ambient light that just would keep us up all night otherwise. So we ironically have blackout curtains, but then we can kind of simulate that with this Philips light. The reason I love it is that you can set a really long wake up time, so it can gradually get brighter and brighter over something like 45 minutes, I think is the maximum. So every weekday, I have it set to start warming up ahead of my alarm. So my alarm typically goes off at 8, and I can set this to start warming up at 7:15. So by the time it's at full brightness, my alarm's going off, and it's a bit more of a natural way to get out of bed. I've gone a step further and rotated this so it's actually facing into a wall. Fortunately, these are white walls, so the light bounces really nicely. So it's actually not even shining on us, and it just feels a little bit more natural having it fill a whole corner of the room. And it is a shared wall with a window, so it kind of tricks your brain into thinking that it is real light. I could understand this sounding gimmicky to some people when you do get a ton of natural light, but in the winter, this definitely made a huge difference for us. Next up is my Dreamy Vacuum Mop. I've been getting a ton of ads for Dreamy on TikTok for a while, so I decided to finally pull the trigger, and I picked, I think, the H12 Pro. And this one specifically has a really long runtime. It bends pretty low down so you can get underneath furniture. But the two main things I love about it is that it gets really close to the edge of wherever you're going. So if you're trying to get right up against your cabinets or your walls or into tight little corners, it's actually going to be cleaning those edges and not just the center part where it kind of leaves these gaps as you go. It also has a self-cleaning and drying mode. So when you're done mopping, obviously the roller and the brush is going to be pretty wet. So when you put it into its dock to charge, you can have it do a clean cycle and then it actually dries itself. When I was researching other hardwood cleaners, that was one thing that a lot of them did not have, was a way to actually dry the brush. So you end up cleaning and getting rid of all that dirt, but then it just kind of sits there inside the mop and it collects over a couple days and gets like a funky smell. So it's a pretty neat all-in-one solution, and I will admit I have been using this almost every single day. It's a really nice way to reset at the end of the day. And when you're finished cleaning the kitchen, do a quick mop. We also have cats, so being able to clean around their litter box and give it a fresh smell has been really nice. Number 4 is my iPad mini. This is kind of a full circle purchase for me because I actually owned the original iPad mini when it came out 15 years ago. And I've always thought that this is the perfect size because it's bigger than your phone, so it's really nice to have that extra real estate, but it never feels heavy or bulky like you're carrying around the screen of your laptop everywhere you go, which is how I feel about all iPad Pros or any of those big tablets. And I'm also trying to stay off of my phone. So using my phone as more of a productivity tool and a utility. And in between, I mostly use my iPad mini for entertainment. So I'm typically watching a ton of YouTube, TV shows. I also spend a lot of time on social media, specifically on my iPad. I've talked about this in other videos, but I don't have any social apps installed on my phone so that I can limit my time on those platforms. Besides that, I might use it every now and then to do some quick sketches for work. I'm actually currently using it as a preview monitor plugged into my camera. It's perfect to take on a plane too. I have a small Lululemon bag that I can fit my iPad and my passport and some AirPods in, and that's kind of like the perfect compact travel kit that I found. My main gripe with the iPad mini is the screen, and not even the quality, but just having a better refresh rate. Sometimes when you are scrolling, even on a web page and reading text, you can definitely see some kind of jittering or jelly roll, I think is what they call it in this version of the iPad. I think it's silly that in 2026 we're still only getting 60 hertz refresh rate. If you do compare this to something like the iPad Airs, I think, or definitely the iPad Pros, those screens are noticeably better, but I'm sure it's just a trade off with keeping the price low. So, besides that, if you're just watching shows and hanging out on it, I think it's a great device. Number 5 is not a piece of tech, but it actually supports my biggest piece of tech, and that is a good monitor arm. About 6 months ago, I upgraded to an ultra-wide monitor. I recently put a video out on my tech channel talking about how I use this every day at work as a software designer. The stands that typically come with these monitors are really poor quality. I found that every time I'm like bumping the desk or typing, it's always kind of rattling. So investing in a solid monitor arm that can support that weight, you can get it exactly where you need, makes such a big difference. I also have a desk shelf, and I love the aesthetic of how the monitor just looks like it's floating right above. I can still fit my laptops underneath the screen and still have space for storage, and I don't have to deal with the clutter of these massive stands that they typically come with. I think the one I bought is around $100, and I would honestly recommend not going below that price point unless you're getting some good deal, because most of the budget options you find will only work for a couple weeks or maybe a few months, and then they'll slowly start to loosen or just something will break. And honestly, if you're investing in a really good monitor, it's not worth trying to cheap out on a good stand. Number 6 is my iPhone 17 Pro, but probably not for the reason you think. So I upgraded to this from the 15 Pro, which in hindsight was probably unnecessary, but I was really looking forward to the rear-facing cameras. The way that it was advertised in terms of Apple Pro RAW and the zoom lens capability, at the time I hadn't really invested in good lenses yet, and so I was considering using my iPhone as kind of my daily camera. But it turns out the things that actually shocked me was the front-facing camera and then the battery. So having a bigger sensor for the front-facing camera and allowing it to automatically resize depending on who's in frame with you actually makes such a difference when you're taking group selfies. Definitely a first-world problem, but I was shocked at how good it actually was. The second thing was how good the battery life is. I'm not really an intense phone user by any means, but I definitely have it with me throughout the day, checking Slack messages, watching videos for work. People send me Loom videos all the time, so there's definitely significant usage on it. It doesn't just sit in my pocket all day, but I rarely get below 50% at the end of a given day. For long travel days, that makes it even better because you have that extra capacity, and I'm never really worried about having enough to call an Uber or pull up maps wherever I'm going. Number 7 is a good tripod. I was given the K&F Concept tripod recently, and this thing is a beast because it gets incredibly tall, like the tallest I've ever seen a tripod get. So you can use it for pretty much any angle you need to. The arm can also rotate 90 degrees, so you can get a perfect top-down shot without actually showing the tripod. I've used this with my phone mounted at the end of it and also the camera that I'm shooting on now. And it's just honestly a great tripod. It's really well built. You can do so much with it. I'm actually considering getting the desktop tripod version of that as well, because then I can just have the same setup and use the same mounts. Right now, I kind of have a Joby tripod that's combined with a podcast mic stand, and it's not the greatest setup. So being able to use kind of the same ecosystem of adapters and all that would be awesome. But highly recommend checking out this brand. I don't think they're super expensive, but I really enjoyed using it so far. Number 8 is the Sonos Beam Soundbar. For the last 5 or 6 years, I had a run-of-the-mill Samsung soundbar. It was a 2.1 setup, so it did come with a subwoofer, but for the last 2 years, every 10 minutes or so, the sub would just cut out for about 5 to 7 seconds. So a couple things I love about the Sonos is, one, it's just built really well. When you take it out of the box, you can feel it's a pretty hefty product. Not so heavy that I was worried about putting it on our TV stand, but it definitely feels well built. The setup was really easy, and while they do have settings to adjust EQ and all that, I didn't even feel a need to. I just kind of trusted that it was going to sound good right off the bat. But the second thing I love is that they have a really solid ecosystem, so you can kind of build your own modular home theater. We're in an apartment right now, so I'm probably not going to go too crazy. But knowing that if we were to move somewhere and get more space, I could just continue to add speakers and I don't have to start from scratch is a really nice plus. One call out here is that if you are coming from any setup with a subwoofer to just using a soundbar, you will notice the lack of low end. Now, that's not to say the Sonos doesn't have really good sound all around. I'm sure that if I turned off the sub in the Samsung setup, which was happening anyway every 10 minutes, it would have sounded a lot more thin than it does right now. But knowing that I can expand down the road is a nice plus. Number 9 is my Oura Ring. I've been an Oura Ring user for about a year now. I have probably never taken this off longer than a couple hours just to charge. So almost every single day now for over a year, and I've gotten a ton of good use out of it. The core value for Oura is that they are a passive health tracker. So if you don't want to be getting notifications, you don't want to feel like you're always tracking something, and you don't want it to be invasive, then that is definitely the route to take, where you don't have a screen you're always looking at. It's a lot more incognito than something like an Apple Watch. It's an incredible sleep tracker. It's good at tracking your stress levels, your recovery time. My wife and I both have one of these, and multiple times in the last year, it's predicted that we're getting sick before we even feel we're getting sick. That's how good the stress tracking is, because it can just track so much more than something like an Apple Watch. And I think part of that is due to the fact that it's also on you all the time, and it's doing that one thing really well. The two limitations I ran into was it's not great at fitness tracking specifically. You cannot take it into the gym and lift. There's a lot of safety concerns with that. So I always had to take it off, and then I was kind of entering those strength workouts manually, and I never felt it was super accurate. And the second thing is that there's no haptic motor. I much prefer waking up to my watch vibrating than a blaring sound that could also wake up my partner if we're not getting up at the same time. But my daily driver right now has been to wear the Oura Ring pretty much 24/7, and then I'll throw on my Apple Watch when I'm going to the gym or at night when I want to set an alarm. If you're not into screen-based notifications and you want something unobtrusive, then I definitely can recommend the Oura Ring. Finally, at number 10, we have the XBloom Studio. This is one of my favorite coffee machines, and I am a huge coffee nerd, but not quite to the point where I've committed all the way to being into espresso and all the gear and practice that comes along with it. I've had a ton of different coffee setups, from French press to Chemex and V60s. I've always enjoyed the art of it, and I always loved when I had time to slow down, experimenting with different brews and routines. But actually, at the end of the day, what I really wanted was something that was just consistent and easy to use. A couple of things I love about the XBloom is it's a 3-in-1. So you have a grinder, a brewer, and a scale all built in. You don't need separate gear. 2 is it can be as simple as you want it, and it can be as complicated as you want it. So you can set everything up with a single tap, press a couple buttons, and you're good to go. Or you can also get into their mobile app and control literally every setting you could want. You can have as many different pours as you want. You can control the temperature, the direction, the intensity of every single pour. And what's really great about that is that you can give all those settings to the roasters and the brewers so they can dial in their specific beans with the machine. So you can buy their X Pods, which are essentially just freshly roasted beans that are pre-measured, and they ship with an NFC card. So you can just tap the machine with it, and all those settings are dialed in for you with a single tap. The third thing I love is that you're not locked into their pods. You can also buy some of their filters, and then you can use any beans that you want. You can even set up your buttons to be in simple mode, which basically just lets you have a preset for light, medium, and dark roast. So pretty much no matter what beans you buy, you can get a pretty good taste right off the bat. So if you love coffee, you're looking for something that's consistent, and you don't want to fully commit to something like espresso and all that comes with it, I'd highly recommend looking at XBloom. So these are things that I've actually stuck, products I reach for almost every single day that are well built and that I still buy knowing what I know now. The goal for me is not to buy more gear, but to choose better gear with more intention. I hope this was helpful, and I'd love to hear what daily drivers you're using in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.